The following audio presentation is a production of Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, in association with the Division of Continuing Studies and the Institute on Ethnicity, Culture, and the Modern Experience. This production was originally funded by the New Jersey Historical Commission and has been remastered by the Rutgers ITV studio.
Now, Mr. Blaine, as you've been sailing around the world, I think you round the world on the photograph. I'm not charged with anything.
This is an extremely rare record of Thomas Edison from 1888. Although a number of recordings exist of Edison as an old man, he made this trip around the world by phonograph when he was 41.
Then we'll go and stay around Paris for about 2 weeks, go to Berlin. After we stayed about 2-3 days in Berlin and got the blues, we'll go to St. Petersburg.
This cylinder was only recently discovered among the many artifacts at what was once Edison's laboratory. Fast forward to 1997.
I have to stick my face in this thing.
Musician Marshall Crenshaw is putting his entire face into the large end of a huge horn, while recording engineer Peter Dilge places the stylus at the horn's small end on a spinning wax cylinder on this original Edison machine from 1898.
Okay. The Wedding Song, sung by Marshall Crenshaw and David Mansfield, recorded at the Edison Laboratory. I love you more than ever, more than time, more than love. Love you more than money and more than the stars above.
I love you more than ever, more than time and more than love. Love you more than money and more than the stars above.
Not exactly CD quality, but before this Edison invention in 1877, all sounds could exist only for the moment. The phonograph and the electric light were invented in Menlo Park, New Jersey, but Edison spent most of his working life at the West Orange laboratory complex he built in 1887. Many examples of Edison's work are on display in what is now the visitor center of the former lab. There's his first successful invention, the stock ticker from 1868, and the first talking doll from 1890. There are the first batteries, which Edison tried using for an electric automobile in 1902. There are vintage movie cameras and kinetoscopes, which are viewers for watching short films, such as one featuring Annie Oakley shooting at moving targets. There's a combination movie projector and phonograph connected with a belt for talking pictures from 1912. That's 15 years before talkies debuted commercially. And there's a sample of reinforced concrete, cement with steel rods, that was used to build Yankee Stadium. But Thomas Edison created more than all these individual items.
He invented the inventing process. He's the father of modern research and development. And no one has followed him yet.
Mary Ann Gerbakis is the superintendent of the Edison National Historic Site in West Orange.
Things that happened at Edison Industries went all the way from idea, from that little scratch doodle on a piece of paper, all the way to marketability. It was built here, fabricated here, duplicated here, and went on to commercial sales. Before that, the process was quite fragmented.
A historic site since 1954, most of the old lab is preserved, down to the time clock where workers would punch in and out. The 14-building complex features chemical labs, a heavy machine shop that still works, and a reproduction of the Black Maria, the world's first movie studio. The library is the heart of the laboratory. It's made of carved oak, including the floor, high ceiling, and 2 balconies that wrap around the room. Edison's desk is still there, covered with his papers. In the corner is a small bed where Edison would take naps. He often worked all night. Tour guide Scott Gurney says it was the love of inventing that motivated Edison.
Edison said his goal with the electric light was to make electric light so inexpensive, only the rich could afford to burn candles. He didn't want to make a lot of money at the expense of people. He said, I invent to make money so that I can go on inventing.
What makes Thomas Edison's many accomplishments even more impressive is that he had little formal education.
The teacher said to his mother that his mind was addled, which means that there's something wrong with his head. So his mother schooled him at home. And he said his mother was the making of him because she taught him the love of learning and the intellectual curiosity that really made Edison successful.
Edison started experimenting as a child, which once resulted in him burning down the family barn. Young Thomas suffered from hearing loss, a condition that worsened with age. At a Rutgers University conference on the inventor in June, Charles Bazerman presented a paper in which he says that although Edison's deafness was quite evident, it may have been advantageous to him.
Noticing the arrangements of Edison's desk and the various places he was notorious for taking naps in made viscerally clear to me that he was indeed deaf, and that this deafness allowed him a special concentration even while working in the midst of many. His highly communicative deafness helped him maintain his own world.
Edison could be harsh with people. For instance, when he felt independent filmmakers were infringing on his invention of motion pictures, he hired goons to beat up his competitors and break their cameras. He's been accused of being anti-Semitic, though perhaps not any worse than was typical of the time. What was atypical was that he hired an African-American inventor, Lewis Latimer. Edison was a workaholic, and his home life took a back seat. But his family was still important. At the Rutgers conference, Deirdre Yates did a performance as the woman behind the great man, Edison's second wife, Mina Miller Edison, based on her own words.
He'll come back from the lab, having been away for days at a time, exhausted from the strain of the work, and he will never think of any rest until he has told me of all that he has done and what he has accomplished. His home is the center of his hope and ambitions.
Although Edison gave us many inventions that we now take for granted, in some cases it would be left for others to make the best use of them. Independent filmmakers made better movies, and other companies made more popular records. On the purely technical end, Edison did not always win either. He thought cylinders were superior to the flat records that became the norm. And he even lost out with something as basic as electrical current. He championed direct current, but alternating current became the standard. Yet it's impossible to deny the major impact of Edison's work on today's technology.
Maybe we can take a closer look at a light bulb now. Yeah, sorry about the next one.
In the 1930s, Henry Ford recreated Edison's Menlo Park lab at the Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. The New Jersey participants at the Rutgers conference got to take a virtual interactive tour of the Dearborn site. This ultimate future meets past event could have been labeled an electronic roots, because although technology has advanced by leaps and bounds since Edison's time, various components of the computer, its audio, lights, batteries, electricity, the moving picture on the screen, even the modern invention process itself, all share a common ancestor, Thomas Alva Edison. I'm Neil Rauch for New Jersey Times.